Finding low prices on family favorites, fresh produce, pharmacy, pet supplies, home improvement, sporting goods, and lawn and garden is tripping you up? Then shop Meijer, where one easy trip can save you lots of trips. Plus, save when you make the trip. Meijer credit card holders get 10 cents off per gallon at Meijer gas stations. Or save a trip with home delivery in the Meijer app. You'll get the same low in-store and sale prices delivered. Get more for your money at Meijer, where it's all just a trip away. Subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. See details at Meijer.com/creditcard.
Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician. The HA Society is open until Wednesday, so don't miss out. Join now. The HA Society, if you don't already know, is a community for women who both care about getting their missing cycles back and care about optimizing their newly recovered cycles. The idea for the HA Society was to be more than just another Facebook group. I wanted to create a place with actual interaction between members, face-to-face calls. We call these community calls, and I'm pretty sure they're everyone's favorite part. One-on-one coaching in the DMs, so you have access to myself, to Coach Ashley, and really anyone else you want to talk to anytime you have a question. And I really just wanted to create a place where the experts and practitioners come to you and not always the other way around. Thus, you are formally invited to join us here. When you join, you'll be greeted by yours truly, be able to start registering for the upcoming events, all of which are included in your membership, and registering for all the community calls. You can dive into the replays as well of the past community calls and binge the early access episodes of the HA podcast that are not yet out, all on your own secret podcast link that is sent to you as soon as you join. We also have a resource library full of topics on everything from how HA actually works, how you optimize your nutrition and exercise for recovery, how to chart your cycles with HA and after you've recovered from HA, and even modules on lab testing and navigating the medical system, on mindset and body image and conception, and even resources for our newly pregnant members. So let's do this. Head to the hasociety.com/join. The link is in the show notes too, and come and join this community of passionate period pursuing women today. Remember that we close on Wednesday, so please be prompt, because once we close, we won't open again for another couple of months. So we cannot wait to see you there. That's the hasociety.com/join. Boom. Okay. Did you have to hit accept?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. Excited to bring everybody's favorite type of episode to them today. A story. Recovery story. I have with me Hayley Floyd. She worked with Ashley, so I actually don't know any really of her story except for the conversations I've had with you here and there through the community calls. So I'm really pumped to just get to kind of like listen for the first time. You tell your story. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor to be here. It still feels so surreal because I literally listened to this podcast every single day for months. So never imagined being on this end, but I'm thankful.
Yeah, I can imagine that being so cool. And just everyone listening who has also thought, I'm going to do this and I'm going to share my story. Come on, bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it. Email me. It's like a little bit of extra motivation. So I like that.
Yeah. Oh no, totally.
Okay. Well, I want to hear from you, because I know where the story sort of begins, I know where it sort of ends, but we're going to leave this as a part of the exciting. We're going to tell it from start to finish, essentially.
Okay. Good. It's a long one. It's a long one.
Well, good, because I need a podcast out of it.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm going to sit back. Tell me, where does the story begin? And
okay. So pretty similar starts to a lot of ladies who I've talked to, but I grew up an athlete, did every kind of sport, always had a brother, had a coach dad. So it was just like my life. I ran track and field in high school, and then I ended up competing in college for a year and a half. So I was a big time runner from when I was young. I think I got my first period pretty late, probably from the sports. Didn't know anything about that, but it was normal. So like, no issues early on when I was a teenager. And then I stopped competing in college. It was just too much. I really hated it. It was a lot of pressure, which probably should have been like a red flag from the beginning. I was just so overwhelmed, and the pressure of having to perform, and even as a college athlete, having to look a certain way. Like I was on a team of female runners who all had this runner bod in college, just lots of things going on during that stage of life. But when I stopped like competing collegiately, I kind of lost myself. Like I didn't know what to do without running or without a team. So I kind of just like kept doing what I was doing. I was like training, even though I wasn't really training for anything, but I didn't have like the team aspect or the inputs kind of like guiding me along the way. And so that's kind of when it started taking a darker turn, and then I was overdoing it. I wasn't eating right. So, when you're a college athlete, you have people helping you with all that. And I didn't have that at the time. So I was just way too into that. I lost a lot of weight and then lost my period. I think probably when I was 20, I'm 30 now. So it would have been about 10 years. And then of course I went to the doctor, and they, like so many others, were like, "Well, we have perfect solution for you. We have birth control." So yeah, it was a great solution. I was aware that I was losing weight, and that like my mom had even said something. So like I knew that I needed to make some changes, and I did. Like I would never say that I was like in a full-blown eating disorder, but it was going down that path. And my mom, because she had struggled, she caught it pretty early, and she's like, "Hey, I'm seeing patterns. Might want to like check yourself a little bit." And I did. So I like gained some weight. I was still very lean, but never like, so again, like this is so repetitive, but like I was never underweight. I was just lean. And I went on like running like that. And I was then training for like half marathons, just for fun. Cause I did really enjoy running. And I was good. So it was fun. Like I was still competitive. But I went on like that for 7 years. Like fast forward, I had no awareness that there was an issue. I knew why I had gone on birth control, but I thought that, I had gained weight, all this stuff. I was fine now. Got married when I was 25. Again, like nothing on my radar that there was any issues all this time. I did though, throughout that time, had a couple of stress fractures, which again, at the time, you're told, "Oh, you're a long distance runner." Like that just comes with the territory. That's what I was told by even doctors. It's not a normal part of long distance running. That's another red flag, but I didn't know that at the time. Anyway, we started talking about starting a family, or at least like preparing to start a family. And I had a feeling, I had listened to Tina Mura's story. She's the runner. Yeah, she's the runner who didn't have a period for like 9 years. I'd heard her on a podcast. She referenced no period, now what? And I'd heard that, and like I kind of in my mind was like, "Oh, this sounds similar." So that's what triggered me to go off of birth control to see kind of like what would happen. Of course, did not.
You had like a intuition or an innate feeling that like this, I probably live my life in a way that's, because I had the same thing, where it's like I didn't really know about HA, but I intuitively knew what
something's
was
not
probably
right.
contributing. Yeah.
And exactly. I didn't know anything about it, but I just had this feeling, which is so funny because like those feelings have driven a lot of like the changes that I've made. Those gut decisions have always been right.
I love it.
This process. Yeah. Didn't get my period back. Like 3 months went by, 6 months went by. At that point, I had read No Period, Now What? And I realized like, okay, I need to make some changes. I had also found out that my bone health was not optimal. So that was another like glaring red flag. So I stopped running. This was like over 2 years ago, like 2.5 years ago. I stopped running. I put on some weight. Was like, okay, I'm doing this. But like 2 months in, I kind of freaked out. And, you know, like when you initially go all in, like I said, I got the puffiness, I got the like rapid weight gain, and it freaks you out and it's really hard to keep going. And I didn't have people around me at the time that were helping me. I was just doing this on my own. So like 3 months in, I was like, okay, this isn't working. I just didn't give enough time. I was like, I probably need like fertility treatment. Because at that time, of course, like once you start talking about having kids and like people around you start having kids, it just like this little fire starts building in your brain, at least for me. And then I wanted it like now. Yeah. So I met with a fertility specialist. Actually I met with Dr. Rinaldi even, and like I talked to her. She was super encouraging. She went through my lab. She's like, oh, you're on the right track. Like things are looking better. So I was encouraged. She's like, maybe I needed a kickstart. I had heard that being successful for other people. So I tried Clomid a couple times and then letrozole as well. And I actually ovulated twice, responding at like various levels of medication. We just didn't get pregnant because so at this point, it all shifted. It had gone from like getting my period back for my own health to like, okay, this is to have a baby. So from like all of last year, it was like, we're doing whatever it takes to have a baby. And that was my main focus. And I'd say like during that time when we started the fertility treatment, I kind of let go of being all in for me, which was, you know, really watching my exercise and really making sure I ate all the things. I had kind of put that on the back burner. So I'd say for like the first, 6 months or so.
Because you were doing treatments.
Yeah, it was my crutch.
Like,
Yep. And I had like, I was in such a normal body at that time, normal by whatever society standards are. I was like, there's no way, like this has to be, there's something else going on here. Like, I was so normal at that stage. And I had given up like running. I was running at one point training, 50, 60 miles a week. And then all of a sudden I was doing nothing. Well, I was walking. I was over walking. So yeah, we spent all of last year doing fertility treatment. We ended up finding out throughout all of that we also had some like male factor issues going on. So it was like both of us, which again, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like I used it again as a crutch. I was like, okay, maybe it's my husband, So, we kind of moved with like this stepwise process of like fertility treatment. You start with oral medications, and then we did a couple IUIs. None of them worked.
I'm taking it they didn't work. It sounds like everything you did was about making ovulation happen, and I'm taking it that it was more of like a progesterone thing at that point that was making it not happen.
I have no idea. I mean, I do.
Just from what you're saying, you're like, I took letrozole, I took Clomid, I did ovulate, didn't get pregnant. It's like, okay, well, you probably didn't have the sufficient progesterone to allow for implantation. And then if you factor in male factor, and I'm like, how were you seeing a lot of cervical mucus while you were taking?
Nope, I wasn't seeing that. Okay. And my lining was really thin every time. So like
so just like we weren't responding strongly.
No, not in the natural way. And then fast forward, we even did, so, they say statistically after you try something 3 or 4 times, the chances of conceiving go down. And at this point, you're also spending a lot of money. So thankfully we had decent insurance. We have decent insurance. So our doctor, we were like looking at the cost of everything, and we actually decided to do a round of IVF starting last January, which is a big decision. but again, nothing was working. And I thought at this point, I was like, it can't be my HA because I'm so normal looking. I'm not doing anything.
Interesting.
You know? So we did a round of IVF. The retrieval went great. Obviously I had a lot of eggs.
You said this was not January this year, but the following
last year.
Of the
Yeah.
prior,
So right before, like right start of the pandemic or through the pandemic. And egg retrieval went great. We were super optimistic. We got like we were blessed with a good number of embryos that were genetic tested and they were good. So we were like, okay, this is going to be it. This is how it's going to happen. And then, you know, I was like, and then after this, I'll recover and it'll all magically work. That's where I was at in my head. I had also during kind of the IVF process, because it's super stressful, I had started working out a little bit more. My family, like lovingly, they got me a Peloton, which I was super excited about. But I started getting really into that. Nothing compared to the running that I was doing, but more than I probably should have been doing considering my hormone levels. So we did our first transfer last March and I had a chemical pregnancy. So like the embryo tried to attach implant, but then didn't last very long. And it ended up being like a very complicated miscarriage. Like they had a really hard time getting my HCG numbers to drop. So it was like 3 months of blood work and trauma and all this stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
It was super emotional. But again, like, you know, they say statistically, you know, there's only 50-50 shots. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm just the unfortunate part of the 50%. So I didn't make any lifestyle changes at that point. We just kind of kept going. I did another transfer in, I think like June of last year. So this is like several months later and exact same thing happened. Each cycle though, again, no matter how many drugs they gave me, I mean, I was on so much estrogen and progesterone and my lining, my endometrial lining would not thicken. My doctor thought I was like an anomaly. Like she could not tell me. She told me it had nothing to do with weight. It had nothing to do with exercise. She actually encouraged me to exercise because of the stress and the emotions of IVF. She just thought it was just like the way that my body just like wasn't going to produce maybe a lining that was like sustainable for pregnancy. That was like the conclusion after the miscarriage in June. So I just like felt like an absolute failure. And it was at that time that little voice kind of came back though. Like, I think when I saw the lining get thin and I had, at this point, like I had started hearing and learning more about HA and reading more about HA, like that voice, that nudge came back in my head and was like, what if this has to do with the fact that I still haven't put in enough work for my body to feel safe? And we were just about to start on our third embryo transfer when I just like had this epiphany or like this gut feeling kind of friend for me. Like I'm religious. So like for me, it was like God being like, like, it's not the right time. Like I need you to put in some work. And so that's when I found you and I found Ashley in the HA Society. I had started listening to your podcast and I started listening to like more and more and more and hearing all these stories, hearing all this information. And like every single time I listened, I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, oh my gosh, that's literally.
I have like tingles. For we're like about to go and do this.
Yeah.
And there was just a feeling. Yeah. Like some kind of awakening of like, there's more rocks you haven't turned over yet. Keep looking. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And the feeling too was like, what if we get pregnant through IVF? Like, I'll never know if I was very unsettled with the idea of like, I'll never know if like if I did what I needed to do to recover. Like my idea was I was going to get pregnant, but that wasn't true recovery. And I think at that stage, like that feeling was like, I need to do everything it takes. Like if I were to get my period back and then we still did IVF because we had male factor. And it didn't work, then at least I would know it wasn't all me, or like there was some guilt, I think, which Ashley really helped me work through, because that was one of the hardest things that I felt was so much guilt over everything over the past like 5-10 years. So anyway, I also knew at that time, like, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to do this on my own. Like, I need somebody helping me, and I need other women, because it's so much harder when you're trying to do this stuff on your own. It's just, every person is so different. And like, you think you're doing the right thing, but you don't have that accountability, right? This whole time I thought I was eating so much.
Yes.
No.
what I'm already taking away from what you're saying here is like, ignore what you think you know.
Yeah.
Like what you think you know, or the story that you're creating in your head, is getting in the way of potential facts or just like another, like being married to this, I'm in a normal body.
Mm-hmm.
This can't be me. Like, being super married to that is just not letting us try.
Yep. And like the theme for me, Ashley always brought it up, was like control. I was trying to control my narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was trying to, like, I wanted to know exactly when I was going to get pregnant, how it was going to happen, what I was going to look like when it happened. Like, that's just like, I'm sure that's a lot of our women personalities.
This is amazing.
So,
this is so true. Like, yes, every part of, and so often when we work with women, this thing comes up of like, this wasn't the plan.
Oh,
this is not my plan. Where do you live?
I live in California.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, this mostly comes up with when you're in the US, with my like Midwest, like center of the country.
Oh, that's so funny.
Ladies, which kind of makes sense as a cultural difference. And then when you like live around the borders of the country, you're a bit more open to like getting pregnant in your late 30s and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's still everywhere.
The religious background though, like I come from, like I'm Christian, and so like lot of my Christian friends are like, okay, get married, have kids, like that's what you do. Like that's like the mental headspace that I was
legit.
in.
Ashley is so different to everyone else.
Yeah,
like to religious people.
It's refreshing though. It's super refreshing.
Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, that it's amazing how much like control is caught. Like, this is an exercise in letting go. I'm excited to hear where else this like
that'll come back, because that was the final piece for me.
Okay, keep going.
Yes, I started working with Ashley last September. I just did like bi-weekly coaching with her, and then started getting more involved in HA Society, joined a few calls, which was like, again, just like a life-changing thing for me. I would say I went by my own definition of all in. I like really went for it. I had like cut out almost all my walking. And I ate even more than I had previously thought, and like had Ashley as the accountability to like sending her what I was eating in a day, and like getting the feedback like, okay, that's great, but like you could do more, like that gut-wrenching feeling of like, oh my gosh, I do even more. And at this point, like I said, I had already gained like, I don't know if I'm not gonna say numbers, but like I had gained like 20 plus pounds at this point, and I didn't start underweight. So I'm like sitting here in this body that's like, okay, like already uncomfortable. And then I had to push myself like past that limit again. But what's funny this time, like when I actually went back all in, it was so much less about the weight gain and the body image stuff, which is a cool feeling. I feel like I had like over the last couple of years, I had started to let that go. It was again, this control piece of like, when's it going to happen for me? Like, I'm willing to do this. And Ashley, even I joked, like I was willing to work with her for 3 months. And then I was like, okay, but after the 3 months, like if I don't have my period back, we're going to try IVF again. Because our insurance, and like, I think it was the end of the year, and our insurance, I had like already met my deductible. So I was like, financially, like it makes sense for us to do IVF again. And that's so funny, because even Ashley was like, well, why are you on this timeline? But I was like, if it doesn't happen here, then okay, then this is my backup plan. I had to control like every part of it.
And question. Yeah. With that, were you also like, I'm going to do this for 3 months and I'm going to hold nothing back. Like I'm going to do exactly what is recommended, yada, yada. And that was sort of, okay.
I really, this time, I mean, I definitely like looking back, it's the hardest thing in the world. I would never wish it upon anybody. And like, I'm not looking back at those like 3-4 months of like, that was a blast. Really glad that I had to go through that.
Yeah, we're not saying, hey, this is
No.
fun. When I do the intake form, I make people rate like their willingness to do the work. Because out of 10, when they apply, I don't know if you remember that.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's very interesting. Yeah, it's like, do people understand it's not be fun?
No, yeah, it's definitely not fun. But I think having gone through everything we'd been through the last like year and a half, 2 years at this point, I was pretty like, okay, this is like, I'm done. Like, I'm done fighting it. And like, this is obviously like worth whatever, like I'm going to put into it in some form. Even if I didn't get my period back, I was like, I'm sure it's going to help IVF, like in the very least. But I did. Yeah, I went pretty hard at it. I was committed to it. And I mean, again, like having Ashley there, like with the encouragement in you in the podcast or in the HA Society, like that accountability was a game changer for me.
The HA Society is open until Wednesday, so don't miss out. Join now. The HA Society, if you don't already know, is a community for women who both care about getting their missing cycles back and care about optimizing their newly recovered cycles. The idea for the HA Society was to be more than just another Facebook group. I wanted to create a place with actual interaction between members, face-to-face calls. We call these community calls, and I'm pretty sure they're everyone's favorite part. One-on-one coaching in the DMs, so you have access to myself, to Coach Ashley, and really anyone else you want to talk to anytime you have a question. And I really just wanted to create a place where the experts and practitioners come to you and not always the other way around. Thus, you are formally invited to join us here. When you join, you'll be greeted by yours truly, be able to start registering for the upcoming events, all of which are included in your membership, and registering for all the community calls. You can dive into the replays as well of the past community calls and binge the early access episodes of the HA podcast that are not yet out, all on your own secret podcast link that is sent to you as soon as you join. We also have a resource library full of topics on everything from how HA actually works, how you optimize your nutrition and exercise for recovery, how to chart your cycles with HA and after you've recovered from HA, and even modules on lab testing and navigating the medical system, on mindset and body image and conception, and even resources for our newly pregnant members. So let's do this. Head to the hasociety.com/join. The link is in the show notes too, and come and join this community of passionate, period pursuing women today. Remember that we close on Wednesday, so please be prompt, because once we close, we won't open again for another couple of months. So we cannot wait to see you there. That's the hasociety.com/join.
I also started tracking like my basal body temperature and all that. And I didn't have like, I think this is another funny thing. I was so bent on like, I'm going to have all these symptoms that are going to like show me that things are going in the right direction. And that's going to be like my security blanket to like keep going. Sure. And I didn't have tons of those visible things. Ashley would say I did because she was looking at my charts, on like my temperatures. But like physically I did not. And so I was, even like during the 3 months, I was super discouraged. I was like, nothing's happening. Just my body's changing. But nothing physical is happening. But then in December, my husband and I joke too, like another key to this is going to Disneyland because we went to Disneyland for a trip, just the two of us. And I ovulated for the first time in probably on my own in like 8-10 years, like the day after we got back from our trip. And then I got had my first recovery period, in December. And that was the best day of my life. Like it's funny the things you like appreciate. But like took a picture of like my ovulation strip. I still have that picture. I like called my mom. I was like, Mom, my LH strip is positive. Like, oh, just the things you celebrate.
Yes. It's like, oh, it's as exciting as positive pregnancy test.
Oh,
because at that point,
so funny.
when you've been through all of this and you sort of understand, I mean, there's always, for most people, there's some doubts, right? But for me, it's like when I knew that if I could get my period to look good, like my cycle to look good, I knew I could get pregnant. And so there was more doubt in the ability to recover than there was in the ability to get pregnant for me.
Nice. See, I'm the opposite. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, most people
like, yeah, I was like, well, because we've been told everything. I was like, oh, I'm going to do all this and then still not get pregnant.
Yeah, like you've been told multiple times now. Yeah, true.
Which is harder. It makes it even harder motivation wise, because you're like, I could put in all this work and it could still not get me what I want.
Ugh, what a freaking like lesson in adversity. I love it. Just the perseverance for anyone listening who has had those statements told to them, which is many, or even just who tells themselves that, right? Like this can't happen for me. I'm probably not likely to get pregnant. You know, I've done so much work and it still hasn't worked. Like when you have done so much that you think you're at the limit of how much you can do, that is when you go further. Like you dig a little deeper. So cool.
Yeah. And anytime I had to ask myself that question, like, is there more that I can do? The answer was usually yes. Like having to ask that question, like, am I eating enough or am I walking too far? Like that was my own like internal voice saying like, yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wasn't just, So anyway, had my first cycle, so excited, like celebrated like crazy. And which is also funny because I had said like, okay, after my first period, we're going to do IVF. Like getting pregnant naturally was not really like on my radar still. I was like, there's like, we're doing IVF. It's just a matter of when, and like, my body's just going to be in a better place for when we do it. So then though, that little voice came back and I was like, well, what if I like waited until I had 3 recovery periods and I was like actually quote unquote recovered, or at least consistent and not just like a one-off, enough for my lifestyle changes were going to continue. So I told Ashley, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. So I kept.
This is important just because one period post Disneyland trip, like there's so many variables in it that you can't replicate. And this does happen a lot. Women go on vacation and they're like, I got it.
Yeah.
I had one girl, Kathleen, shout out. She had a very similar thing. She went on this vacation and I'm like, oh my gosh, she did it. She'd done all this work. But then her second, third periods didn't come. And so we're like, what did you do that month that was different? And she's like, I was on vacation and I ate differently. So it's like, even though you think you're doing all the things 2 months post vacation, it's not the same. There are missing pieces. You're still trying to control. So it's so important that those of us, which is most of us, who are still trying to control something, do exactly what you say, what you're saying here, which is like, let's actually solidify these lifestyle changes and behaviors, just in case it was like a fluke.
Yeah. And I had heard that, like, I don't think I would have had that mentality if I hadn't heard that from other women. Like so many women who they have one, even Ashley had said like she had one and then her second one was longer. Yeah. And I fully expected that. I anticipated it. And so then I like that determination, like just really kicked in. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. I got to be one of those people who like, of course, type A personality. I got to achieve this thing. Now I have to be fully recovered.
Right.
So I kept doing it. And it's, again, so many things that people told me were true. The second cycle was a million times harder because like, you know, I didn't ovulate on day 14. So like then day 16 came and I was like freaking out. I was texting Ashley. I was like, am I doing something wrong? Like all the stereotypical things. I did ovulate late. I think that was like day 25.
Yeah.
But this cycle was like textbook. Like, I know you're like a cervical mucus guru. This one was like beautiful. I had the full like 5 days of like progression. And I was like, okay.
Sounds
beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So my luteal phase was short in the first cycle, it was like 7 days, which I fully expected. But since like we wanted the chance to try, I did take progesterone after I ovulated on the second cycle. I was still in contact with my doctor. Like I had told her that I ovulated, and I had asked, like, I wanted the chance to conceive. So again, and even Ashley, we had a whole conversation about it. She's like, is that you trying to control the situation, or is that like true? Which, who knows either way. But on my second cycle, I was on the progesterone. So I knew that unless I took a test, I wasn't going to know whether or not to stop the progesterone. So I'm a nurse. So I woke up at 5:00 on a work day and took a test. No expectations at all. Like I was taking this test to know to stop taking progesterone so that I could like start all over again. And 2 lines came up and we found out we were pregnant in January. So on my second cycle, we got pregnant naturally after 2 years of like every possible fertility treatment.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
And like, so with the I took progesterone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After I ovulated.
Yes. So you did that to give implantation the best shot.
Yes.
And this just makes sense, right? Like we typically, very few women are going through this and are trying to get pregnant with the mindset of like, I'm not in a hurry.
Right.
Like most women just they want it now, and so you're gonna decide to do that. Like that's just most people. Like we're gonna decide to just take the progesterone, and so that's totally fine.
Yeah, and I know at that time I think I was in a hurry. It was a decision I made because, like, again, I mean I think I still was trying to control the process a little bit, but it was also that it was, and that's something I still struggle with. Like even being pregnant, like in the first few weeks, like I wanted to know how things like it's just a constant battle for me. Like I want to know how things are going to end. Like I just want to know things. That's my battle that I think I'm going to face like for the rest of my life. And thankfully now I just have better tools to navigate through it.
Right. Yes. It's like, how am I not navigated by my need to control? But when you can identify that it's happening, it just removes the power from it. And now you're making the conscious decision.
Yeah.
Right? So you're at a choice point of like, I could take progesterone for this. Now I know I might be trying to control the situation. And for this particular situation, I choose that.
Yeah.
But in other situations, you won't. And now you understand yourself better. And I think it's so really just noble for most of us to go to like have a goal to just understand ourselves, know ourselves as well as we possibly can. Yeah. So, and you'll take that into the rest of your pregnancy and into your parenting, and I'm trying to control things that I can't control. Yeah.
My husband even knows it now too, because it's so fun. He's been like watching me learn in the background. So he knows control is my biggest thing. So even when I have like anxiety around certain things, like in the pregnancy, like a cramp or something that'll just like throw me off the rails, he'll come in. I think he's even heard some of my conversations with Ashley, because he'll come in and he'll be like, now, is this real? Or is this like your head? I'm like, it's probably my head. Thanks a lot.
If that's true, I like to think that he's learning some things about himself too.
Oh, totally. Totally is.
Like we're all a little bit like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. But I think
so
with the progesterone, the control part, I knew the decision to do it came from like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to try to control, I think, going back into IVF. So I wanted to I wanted the full ability of my natural cycles to really go for it. But like you said, like there were some decisions I was like, okay, I learned how to ask myself the question, like, am I controlling this because like I want to change my body, or I want to change, like, is this a selfish control, or is this like, okay, this is control, but this is also sometimes like what women actually need. And like, I wasn't justifying it for this reason of like, I wanted to look a certain way, or like, I don't know if that makes sense, but my decision process like changed when it came to control of like really learning, like, am I controlling this coming from a place like my HA side of like I said, having this identity around being thin, having this identity around being an athlete? Or is it coming from like a lot more understanding from a place of like grace? That's one thing. Like I gave myself grace to take progesterone because I was like, put in a lot of hard work. Like it's okay to take this pill for 10 days. Like you're not cheating. But I learned how to have more grace for myself. It's pretty cool.
Because this is cool because you could have gone down the route of like, I can do this by myself.
Right.
And no, you know, like you're accepting help. And that's actually a big theme, right? Of something that you did along this process was accept help, starting with fertility treatments and looking into that, accepting help in acknowledging that perhaps male factor is a role. You know, maybe not. You mentioned being unsure.
Yeah, now because my husband was retested. He actually had like a procedure done like halfway through all of this. And that was supposed to like improve things. And he was retested, not even kidding, like 2 days before we found out I was pregnant, and there was no change.
Yeah, this is curious. So obviously I don't have the numbers in front of me. And they said he was low, but I have seen this a lot of times. And it's so interesting because the normal ranges are lower than the optimal ranges. So like your regular fertility test, they'll say you're in normal range, but that could still be lower than what is optimal based on the studies.
Right.
Even still, people will get pregnant. And so I've honestly been in some like embarrassing situations where I've been working with someone, or not even, just like a friend was like trying to get pregnant and this happened. And you know, they tried a few times and it didn't work. And I was like, well, you know, he is really suboptimal, like yada, yada. But then we still focus only on her and not on him. And we do eventually get pregnant. And so I'm with you in like, this is what the research says and okay, but this is what I'm seeing in practice and like anecdotally. And I like, but you know, that's
no, I've heard, I mean, same thing. I've heard so many women with male factor, and obviously like male factor can totally impact things. Like I don't want to take away from that from like
definitely
anyone who's struggling with it, but I do think that there's something to like the power of like women's hormone.
I can like totally hear your phone ringing.
I know. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's like
it's my mom. See, this is
mom checking on you. Yes.
Anyway,
I think maybe, I don't know, maybe the testing's a bit weird or something. And you know, did he take steps though? Like he made some lifestyle changes?
Yeah.
Like maybe it did help, but the numbers just don't correlate in exactly the same ways when we make changes. It shows on our chart.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just not the same for,
and it's true.
It's
like
not the same for lab testing at all.
No. And yeah. So anyway, so now I'm 13 weeks pregnant today.
Woo.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So good. You're having a boy.
Yes, having a baby boy, which is also so exciting. So
dang. Yeah. I mean, my absolute favorite stories are just like when you just people who were going down the treatment route and got pregnant naturally. Like what a whole additional perspective you get to have. And I mean, it's so cool. It's just to be told that you can't and to go and do it. It's a cool feeling. Yeah,
it's a really cool feeling. I also like it's taught me so much. Like I've learned so much empathy for just infertility world and like the IVF world, and like even women like in the group. Like I just so get it. I get every stage of it. I get people who are like having a hard time deciding what to do, because even now, like I'm glad I did what I did, but like these are hard decisions when you have so many like doctors and outside people telling you like, well, treatment will work, and then it does work. Like I've had other friends with, you know, even with HA, and like treatment worked so much sooner than it would have worked for me. Like every woman is like totally different. So like when it's you and you're in that spot, like it's so challenging. And the only thing I can say for me was like that voice, like that inner voice or God was telling me like, you just need to go for it. Like I really need you to go for it, and I need you to go all in, and I need you to like give this the full shot. like for me, that was the driving force. And so like, you know, for anyone in those decisions, like I think just listen to your gut. Your gut is usually saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I'm like, listen to your gut, but also sometimes question it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or like, is it really your gut, or is it, because you're right. Yeah. Like your gut is different to that voice in your head that's telling you this is like you don't fit the mold for HA, or
Right.
like you're not thin enough for this to be your issue, or it's not, that girl over there doesn't have this problem, so you don't. Like there's a difference in that voice and the one in your gut that's telling you, oh, but maybe what's happening with that girl over there is totally relevant to what's
you're right.
with you.
I'm totally thinking of like, for me, it was like that deep inner voice, that deep inner gut always telling me. And then like the little voices on my shoulder that were like telling me, but like, well, you've gained a lot of weight. Like you probably
They really are, like when you visualize them, they are in different places. Like the voice is coming from, deep within, like you say, like in your heart, or, deep within your brain. And that one telling you, oh, you should, this is silly. Like this probably isn't the issue. Let's go back to the gym and we'll just like supplement our way out of this instead. Like that one is so much more surface level, and it's so much louder, unfortunately, most of the time.
Oh, so much louder and easier to access. Like I didn't even understand my own deep feelings. Like that was part of the process too. Like I couldn't even like understand what my gut was telling me, or like the inner part of me, but it was so easy for me to like Google something to reassure me, like, okay, you're doing the right thing, by going through treatment. Like, so yeah, the inputs they're not even, for sure, but
incredible. Well, so good. Such a good story. So relatable to a lot of people. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. I don't know, what's one thing you would love for everyone to know?
Yeah, I'd say like looking back, I would not be here if it wasn't for like people and this community. And like I still to this day, I know I would not have done it without like coaching. And not that everyone, like some women don't need coaching, but like also the community piece. I think there's a lot of like maybe even guilt about admitting that you need a community of women who are struggling with something. And I was definitely that person for a long time. Like, I don't want to join a group or whatever because I don't want to admit that like I also have this thing.
It's gonna need a group.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like work, right? Like you're deciding to make a financial investment, whatever.
Yeah.
And to like, it's going to take time out of my day to show up on these calls and contribute, or to go through the information and the resources, whatever. Like you're making an investment in your time, and people don't want to do that. And it's like, well, maybe, just maybe that's exactly what you need.
Yeah. Now that was it for me. That was like the missing link, was just having somebody and having a group of people who had also had gone through this experience, or, at various stages of it, being able to like connect with them and like keep me motivated. Cause I think on my own, I wouldn't have been as motivated to keep doing it. So I'd say like that was probably the biggest thing. And then truthfully, it's just like on those hardest days, cause there are so many of them, when like I'd have days where I just like was emotional all day. Like I used to I get frustrated by those days. And one thing that Ashley taught me was like, just to like, let them happen. And I'm like really glad that I learned to have just like a really bad day, and it was okay. Like I didn't need to be mad at myself for having a bad day.
And like you don't need to, there's that voice that we're talking about. When you have a bad day, the voice tries to fix it. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, here's what you can do to fix it. No, let's just ride through it and not try to fix shit.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just have a bad day.
She's a smart girl.
She is. I hate it sometimes, but she's right on time. Yeah. When both of you are, I like both your perspectives they're different, but they're so good. So I would say like, just everyone's different. Everyone's journey is going to look different. Everyone's pace is going to look different. But I never in a million years, like, I did not think I'd be here. Like, I just thought, again, I thought I was a unicorn, and I thought that there was no way. And like, I relied on other women's stories who had gotten to that place. And so if anyone just needs that encouragement, like, if I can do it after like 2.5 years of like all the treatment and all the stuff, like, you definitely can too. And it might even be easier.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there are women who have the exact same story in their head that you had of like, this can't be me, listening right now. And I want y'all to know that she's proof. She's proof that it could be you. That it probably will be. Like, it probably will be.
Like, statistics says it definitely will be. Like,
yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your story today. This is really great. I feel all tingly and happy. And I hope everyone else has a really great day. And if you want to be just like Hayley, come hang out with us at the HASociety.com.
yes, do it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast. And if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much, because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
This program is brought to you by Paper, Tutors for All. The last couple of years haven't been easy for students. Kids are struggling. Schools and families are too. But what if there are new ways to help? What if tutoring was part of every student's experience? What if it was available 24/7 and free? When schools choose Paper, students get free 24/7 access to tutors. And if you're listening to this right now, there's a good chance your child's school already has Paper, or will be adding it very soon. Visit paper.co and find out more.
Your happiest spring starts with Lowe's, and it all starts with the beautiful green lawn. Keep it looking sharp and save $50 on the Cobalt 40-volt self-propelled mower. Was $399, now just $349. And give the rest of your yard a healthy boost with a bag of our premium mulch at the everyday low price of $368. Create a season full of happiness at Lowe's. Home to any budget, home to any possibility. Selection varies by location. While supplies last, about 3/31 through 4/6. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. U.S. only.